Hello, my brothers and sisters. Um, this is series 162, and we are talking about the order at the Lord's Supper. And this is coming out of 1 Corinthians 11th chapter, 17 through 22. And this is all dealing with how we act. I mean, there's an order that we have to go by when we take the Lord's Supper. And these are things that were going on in the Corinthian church and other churches as well that Paul had to get in order. And this is going to be from 17 through 22. And I'm going to begin reading. It says, number 17 says, "But in the following instructions, I cannot praise you." I can't. He said, I cannot do it. For it sounds as if more harm than good is done when you meet together. Number 18 says, "First, I heard that there are division among you when you meet as a church. And so some extent I believe it." He said, some extent I believe it, because there was other things that were going on in the church too. And the people who wrote Paul and told Paul about the things that was going on, these were associates of Paul. They were true believers of Paul. So they did not lie. They took the gospel serious. So this is why Paul had to react. And let me go to 2 Peter 2, 1, 2, 3. 2 Peter 2, 1, 2, 3. The danger of a false teacher. And what was going on, there was people in the church teaching false stuff. And that's why you had so much division. Anytime you find division in a church, it's somebody telling you the wrong thing. Just like in heaven. There was division in heaven. Why? Because Lucifer was telling other angels the wrong advice and giving them the wrong advice. That's why there was division in heaven. And God put a stop to it. It's just like right now, Paul has to put a stop to this stuff. It cannot go on. As a leader, a pastor, a bishop, whoever's in charge of the church cannot allow stuff like this to go on, because it will ruin the church. You will get people that will come to church and they see what's going on, they won't come back. And they said, what kind of church is this to allow stuff like this to go on? So this is why it's so important. And then God will send people to help you straighten out your problems in the church. But then they're going to cast them out too. I've been in situations like that, where God sent me somewhere to help the church, and then the people get upset with me because I came to preach the truth. Just like Paul, they did him the same way. But Paul stuck to his guns. And this is why I learned from Paul, stick to your guns. You stick to the truth and do it. And this is 2 Peter 2, 1 through 3. And it says, number 1 says, "But there were also false prophets in Israel, just as there will be false teachers among you. They will cleverly teach destructive heresies, and even deny the master who brought them. In this way, they will bring sudden destruction on themselves." Number 2 says, "Many will follow their evil teachings and shameful immorality. And because of these teachings, the way of truth will be slandered." The way of truth will be slandered. Just like Jesus, he came to preach the truth. and he was slandered for it. The Pharisees slandered him for it. They called him a false prophet. They called him a devil. You see? So therefore, we have to be careful. We have to be careful to teach the word in spirit and in truth. And whatever comes, it just comes. Number 3 says, in their greed, they will make up clever lies to get hold of your money. But God condemned them long ago, and their destructions will not be delayed. See, God, a lot of these people just do it for money. These false prophets, they just coming in for money. False teachers, money. They go to each different churches just to preach the false lies because they didn't bother about getting a real relationship with God. They found out, like Judas, that there was an easy way to make money. And that's what these false people are doing. They're making money. Then you have your people just don't know no better anyway. They just want to be somebody. They just want to be recognized. Those are the type of people that are also teaching falsely because they did not take out the time to know God, to know Jesus. They don't get their word. They don't read it. They just read enough to go in and get something to make you feel good, to make you shout and dance. But that's not what it's about. It must take on a change. This is what the gospel is all about. Number 19. But of course, there must be division among you so that you have God's approval. See, there's some folks in the church still got God's approval now. Will be recognized. God said, I'm going to recognize y'all. One day when Jesus come back, y'all will be recognized. And it says here, and let the wheat and the tare grow together. We'll go to Matthew and talk about that. Matthew 13, 24 through 30. And this is the parable of the wheat and the weeds. 24 says, here is another story Jesus told. The kingdom of heaven is like a farmer who plants good seeds in the field. Number 25 says, but that night, as the workers slept, his enemies came and planted weeds among the wheat and then slipped away. This is what people do. This is what evil people do. They work in the dark. They'll wait till it's night and come and to destroy anything that you have. The devil will wait till you go to sleep and start messing with you. And you can't get no good night's sleep all night because he's just messing with your mind over something that done happened that day. Or something that really bothered you. Your boss treated you wrong. Your wife left you. Y'all got in an argument. Your family member died. See, the devil always in it something to try to create havoc in your life. Number 26 says, when the crop began to grow and produce grain, the weeds also grew. 27, the farmer's workers went to him and said, sir, the fields where you planted that good seed is full of weeds. Where did they come from? The worker said. Number 18 says, an enemy has done this. The farmer explained, should we pull out the weeds? They asked. See, this is the way he talks about. You got good people. Let me go back to it right quick. Okay, number 19. But of course, there must be division among you so that you who have good approval will be recognized. You see, in this church, you have good people that's going to be recognized, that live for Christ, got a relationship with Christ. But then you got those demons and those devils that work for the devil. They out to disturb and kill, steal, and destroy the church, the foundation that God built. So therefore, this is what this talking. That's why Jesus gave this parable about the farmers and the seeds and the wheat, because he wants to destroy us. We are the seeds. We are the wheat. So he wants to destroy us with these weeds. Weeds come to choke you out. Every problem, every situation that come your way, it comes to choke you out. But you got to be a better man and a tougher man in Jesus Christ and just go on anyway. Don't matter what, no matter what happens, you keep going forward. Don't stop. I didn't stop. I kept going. I kept reading that word. I kept studying that word. And I kept fasting. I kept praying. This is what you got to do. Number 29 says, no. He replied, you'll uproot the wheat if you do. Number 30 says, let both grow together until the harvest. Then I will tell the harvester to sort out the weeds. Tie them in a bundle and burn them. And to pull the wheat, put the wheat in the barn. When Jesus comes back, he's gonna separate the wheat from the tares. He's gonna separate us. So therefore, that's why he said he said bundle them up and burn them, because that's what's gonna happen to the ones that don't obey God. When Jesus comes back, you going straight to the pit of hell. And you shall be burned the rest of your life. So this is what he means here. And this is what's going to happen to the people that's in the church messing up. Not paying attention. They just want to mess up. Number 20 says, when you meet together, you are not really interested in the Lord's Supper. It's possible. I know y'all ain't interested in the Lord's Supper when y'all meet together. I mean, it's crazy because you had different cultures there. You had the rich culture, you had the poor people, you had the slaves. So you had different groups of nationalities there when they were coming to the Lord's Supper. The rich people wanted to override everything in the church. Just like the Pharisees, they was a rich group of people. Sadducees was a rich group of people. That's why they took over the synagogue. Because they had the money. They had the wealth. And they ran the synagogue, the church of God, as a business. It's what they did. They changed the laws. They made more laws than the regular Ten Commandments. They made more. Over 459 laws or more they made. Just so they have control over the people. And so here, they wanted to do the same thing. Rich people was used to living lavishly. They were used to having parties, used to getting drunk, doing all sorts of stuff. Number 21 says, for some of you hungry, for some of you who are hungry, to eat your own meal without sharing with others. As a result, some go hungry while others get drunk. This is what they was doing before the Lord's Supper. This is what they was doing. They was coming getting drunk, and then they was coming and eating all the food. The slaves would get off work late, so when they got there, all the food was gone. So now they're hungry. You see, there's no respect. There's no love. We're supposed to love our brother, and that's how you treat him? No respect for God at all. None. That's why Jesus said, when I was hungry, did you feed me? When I needed clothes, did you clothe me? When I was in prison, did you visit me? And they're going to say, well, when did we see you hungry or naked or in prison or sick? And they're going to say, turn from me. I know you're not. Because you did not take care of the people, your brothers and sisters, while you was on earth. And Let's go to Jude 12, 11 through 12. Jude 11 through 12. False teachers. It says, number 11 says, what sorrow awaits them, for they follow in the footstep of Cain, who killed his brother. Like Balaam, they deceive people for money. And like Korah, they perished in their rebellion. They were, matter of fact, the whole family, friends and everybody. God destroyed them all in one day. All of them. And he worked in the temple. He took care of the ark itself. Whenever the ark had to be moved, he did it. But he wanted to be a priest. He wanted to take the place of a priest. And that's what I say about trying to be somebody instead of being what God called you to be. You're trying to step over into somebody else's shoes because you want to be more important than what you are right now. And this is what it's all about. It's not about being important. Number 12 says, when these people eat with you in your fellowship meal, communicating to celebrate the Lord's love. They are like dangerous reefs that can shipwreck you. They are like shameless shepherds who care only for themselves. They are like clouds blowing over the land without giving any rain. They are like trees in almond that are doubtly dead. For they bear no fruit and have been pulled up by the root. Remember when Jesus gave that parable about not a parable, but him and the disciples walked through this orchard, and this fig tree. He wanted something to eat. It wasn't in season now, but he went over to get something to eat from it, and it didn't have no fruit. So he cursed the tree, and it died. Now let's go back. Alrighty. Now number 22. What? Don't you have your own homes for eating and drinking? Or do you really want to disgrace God's house? This is what those people are doing. We are doing it if we do it. We're disgracing God's house. We have no respect for God's house. Just like Korah, he had no respect for God's house. Satan had no respect for God's kingdom. None. In heaven now, he had no respect. He lost all respect for God. And that's just a grand shame. Excuse me. Do you want me to praise you? He said, no. And shame the poor. And they were shaming the poor. They were treating them like they was nobody. When you have a lot, you treat people like that. God has to remind you sometime that you was poor one time. You became rich. So therefore, don't treat it. Once you go up the ladder, learn how to treat people. Don't treat people like they're nobodies. But treat everybody like you would want to be treated. And what am I supposed to say? Do you want me to praise you? I certainly will not praise you for this. James 2, 5 and 7. And Paul let him know, I'm not going to praise you for doing the mess that you do. It's not going to happen. All right, 21. Let me go back to 21. I sort of missed 21. Oh, I did. How did I miss 21? Number 21 says, for some of you hurry to eat your own meal without sharing with others. As a result, some are hungry while others get drunk. Some go hungry while others get drunk. This is what they was doing in the Corinthian church. They was treating God's house like a party house. This is a place you play around in, have fun, get drunk. That's how you treat God's house. That's how you disrespect God's house. Look, Aaron's 2 sons died because they were the incense keepers. They made sure the incense was in the temple. And then one day they wanted to change the incense and use what they wanted to use. And when they walked in there, God struck them dead. Struck them dead. So that's why you got to understand and realize how serious God is about his church. People who play in church right now, man, I feel sorry for you. Because you play in God's church, he is going to burn you. He's going to burn you. When you come to church and you can't love nobody in church, you got to hate your brothers and sisters in church, disrespect God, put God to shame, Christ to shame after what he died for? Yes. You're going to burn. Unless you turn from your wicked ways. This is how you treat the Lord's Supper. You do all this sinful stuff before you take the Lord's Supper. And that's why it says in Corinthians that some of you are even sick and die because you eat it unworthily. You eat and drink the Lord's Supper unworthily. We have to be very careful. Very, very careful. Careful. So let me go. I had another one. Let me now go down to the scriptures. The withered fig tree. Let me read this right quick. Mark 11, 20 and 24 through 24. I'm just going to read. This is what Jesus cursed the fig tree. Number 23 says, I tell you the truth. You can say to this mountain, may you be lifted up, thrown into the sea, and it will happen. But you must really believe it. Believe it will happen and have no doubts in your heart. I tell you, you can pray for anything, and if you believe that you receive it, it will be yours. I'm gonna have to go up and read all of it. Number 20 says, the next morning, as they passed by the fig tree he had cursed, the disciples noticed it had withered from the root up. Peter remembered that Jesus had said to the tree on the previous day and exclaimed, look, Rabbi, the fig tree you cursed has withered and died. That's when Jesus said to the disciples, have faith in God. I tell you the truth. You are, and this is all what it's all about, is having faith in God. And he said a very important thing right here. I tell you the truth. You will say to the mountain, may you be lifted up and thrown into the sea. He's trying to teach his disciples, just like I cursed that fig tree and it died, you can do the same thing. He's telling us we can do the same thing. Because why? They're walking with Jesus. They're having a perfect relationship with Jesus. So anybody who has a perfect relationship with Jesus, all you got to do is speak it and it will happen. It will come forth. And that's the truth, you guys. That's the truth. No question about it. That's the truth. And then he said, may you lift up any throne and throw it into the sea, and it will happen. But you must really believe it. What will happen, and have no doubt in your heart. No doubt in your heart. We got to get to a place where we don't have no doubts at all. I tell you, you can pray for anything that he said, And if you believe that you received it, it will be yours. And let me understand this. He's praying, he's talking about things you can pray for anything, meaning things that's in his will. Now, if you pray for a prostitute, it ain't gonna happen. It is not gonna happen. That's not what Jesus wants you to do. We can't be really stupid about the situation. A lot of people take that scripture right there and say, I can pray for anything, he'll give it to me. I can pray for $1 million and he'll give it to me. No, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about healing folks. He's talking about blessing people, being encouragement to people. Going to clothe people, doing all the things that he did. That's what he's talking about. Christ didn't ever do nothing stupid with his power. So don't think you're going to do anything stupid. It's not going to happen. And then we're going to go down to James and read this too. And this is a warning against perjury. James 2, 5, and 7. 5 says, listen to me, dear brothers and sisters. Hasn't God chosen the poor in this world to be the rich in faith? God chose the poor in this world to be the rich in faith. So don't be ashamed of being poor, because God chose you. Remember he said, many are called, but only a few are chosen. He chose the poor. Aren't they the ones who will inherit the kingdom he promised to those who love him? I'm going to tell you something. Poor people love God because they depend on him. They trust him. That's all they have. That's all they have. Number 6 says, but you dishonor the poor. See, this is what was happening in that church at Corinthians. The rich people dishonored the poor. Ate everything they had. Didn't save them none. When they got there, they didn't have nothing to eat or drink. They were getting drunk in church. Isn't it the rich who oppress you and drag you into court? Rich folks, they don't want to oppress you because they think they all there in a bag of chips. Just because I got money, I can do this, I can do that. I can destroy your life. Whatever your value you have, I'll take it from you because I know the system in court. I can have the lawyers work for me. You see? And then number 7 says, aren't they the ones who slandered Jesus Christ, whose noble name you bear? Those are the ones who destroyed Christ, the Pharisees, the Sadducees. Those are the ones who destroyed him. But that's all they got to do. That's what they do, sit back and watch what's going on. And if it can't happen their way, then they're destroyed. And I got some footnotes here, 17 through 18. This is the wrong way to carry out the Lord's Supper. The footnotes on that is Chola's servant had given Paul news that disgusted him. I was a servant of Paul's. He could hardly believe the news about the behavior of some people at their meetings. In those days, Christians shared a meal before they carried out the Lord's Supper. They brought food and wine to share with each other. Each other? Christ removed social distance between rich and poor. There is no difference now. Between rich and poor, there is no difference. It's all the same. We're all equal. But if you listen to the rich folks, no, we're still better than you. We're still over you. You're underneath me. Oh, no. Don't ever believe that. But some Christians were selfish. They did not care about the poor people. So the meeting was not a sign of Christian love or unity. There was no love and there was no unity in those meetings. And some are like that today. There's no love. There's just no love in the church. Remember what Jesus told the 7 churches? all of you have left your first love. All y'all. Because you got so rich and wealthy, all you believe in your wealth now. You love that more than you do me. And I'm the one that blessed you with it. And you lose sight of me. You have no respect for me now. Instead, it had no value. Verse number 19. The difference among them shows that some were living as God wanted, but other people were not. So that's why you get the wheat and the tare growing together. 20 and 21. The Christians who arrived first had the most comfortable seats. They did not wait for the Christian slaves who came later after their work. Instead, they started their own meal. They ate and drank more than their fair share. So there was little or nothing left when the poor Christians arrived later. 22. Listen at this now. The attitude, the Beatitudes. The attitude shows that they did not care about the unity of God's church. So they might as well stayed at home for their meal. Paul served words, showed that he thought about their greedy and selfish behaviors. He had to go on to remind them about the meaning of the Lord's Supper. And we're going to talk about that in the next series, the Lord's Supper and what it really meant and how it's supposed to be expressed. And this was the whole problem. He had a lot of selfish people, a lot of rich people that want to do it their way. They didn't want to do it God's way. They rather do it their way. Because they want to have control of how things go. You know, it's in churches today. I've seen it. I've been in tent meetings. I've been in so many churches that people stole from the churches. They stole from the big meetings. And that's what they was all about. They were just money grabbers. So this is what we live with today. It's no different from then to today. History just keeps repeating itself. So I just want to give you that lesson on that. And I pray that God has blessed you tonight, that you've learned a little bit more about the truth about the Lord's Supper. God bless you. God keep you.